Bonjour et bienvenue mes amis. No, I'm not in France. At the moment I'm in my shed in Essex. But I was last weekend when we spent some time in a town in the north of France called Abbeville. Now what's Abbeville famous for? Why would I go there? Well, it's not famous for anything. But it is my wife's hometown and where I got married. But you probably know it better from the A26, A16 junction whilst you're on your way to your holidays. But the reason I went there was La Ronde Picarde, a Granfondo event that's run every September as part of the Grand Trophy France series. It's the last event of that series. And it's an event that I've done with several of my friends for the last 10 or so years. The Granfondo attracts around 1,200 cyclists of all different abilities to do two different routes, one at 128 kilometres, one at 190 kilometres, and you'd be glad to hear it's nice and flat over there. Not as flat as the flatlands of Essex, but still pretty flat. Every year the organisers manage to rustle up a couple of local pros. This year we had the ex-French pro and Tour de France stage winner Jimmy Casper and current Age Désert professional Rudy Barbier. And this year as a special treat the organisers managed to attract the legendary Badger. For those that don't know, that's 5 times Tour de France winning and General Chris Froome loving Bernardino. So our weekend plan is pretty straightforward. We meet up on the Friday over in France, get signed on, there's lots to do in the sign-on village, lots to see. Then get out on the roads for a gentle little group ride, remind the guys they need to ride on the right-hand side of the road and get those pesky mechanicals out of the way before the big event on the Saturday. Then it's a case of meeting the locals, getting out for a bit of dinner, and then back to get our heads down for an early start on the Saturday morning. Given the events in September, it's always pretty cold on the roll down into town, so there's often a requirement for some inventive installation techniques.
Yeah. Might just leave it in there.
Ooh! Oh, do you cut?
Once we arrive at the Ronde Picarde, there's time for some start line selfies before we head off out and all hell breaks loose. And off we go. Now, as this is a Granfondo event, there's no start times or riders going off in different waves. It's literally 1,200 guys heading out on the road together, and we were quite lucky. We were relatively near the front as we were seeded from previous years, which meant that we didn't have to go through the whole sort of waiting for the concertina effect to unravel. We just got straight out on the road and smashing it down here pretty much straight away, as you can see from the watts that I'm putting out from the go and the speed that we're managing to do. There were some slower riders in front of us, some VIPs that had been doing interviews at the start, and we pretty quickly smashed through these guys, as you can see, dodging around, and there's plenty of guys that want to be further up and make sure they're near the front so that they're not having to chase the wheels, which some of my friends that were behind us, they were saying they were having to chase pretty damn hard just to try and close down some of these gaps. In previous years that's been part of the enjoyment of it, just flying along here, and we're having to work really hard to close those gaps, but we were quite lucky because by now it was already pretty clear that the lead car up in front was actually neutralising ahead of the race. And as you can see here, I'm just pulling up to the back of this bunch, and it all goes pretty easy. I mean, I'm freewheeling, we're doing 42k an hour. It's maybe it's just slightly downhill, but it was pretty easy at this point. It's my one of my teammates there on my left. That's Pete, who seems to have everything he owns in his back pockets. But again, that's when you're doing a 190 kilometer race. You're not going to want to be stopping to pick up food and water, so you need to make sure you've got enough to get you through. Now, one of the things with this group was that it was relatively compact. It was going at a nice pace, but it was really super nervy. There's lots of guys that maybe shouldn't really have been this far forward and were dropping back quite quickly. Lots of other guys trying to move up, lots of elbow rubbing, lots of braking going on, unfortunately, and you can maybe just see my hands in the shot there. Occasionally I'm having to dab the brakes, which isn't great when you're riding this tight in a bunch and at these sorts of speeds. But anyway, we're still pootling along here at 44 kilometers an hour, and it's a lot of fun. One of the things you don't tend to realize when you're going at these sorts of speeds and you're pumped up and it's the start of the races, you don't tend to sort of realize the exertion that you are putting in, the level of effort that you're actually putting in. And you can see my heart rate's already relatively high. It's up about 170, even though I felt quite comfortable, and I was sort of chatting to Pete and chatting to the other guys around me whilst trying to keep an eye on everyone, because there were some pretty bizarre braking maneuvers going on. I think you see this guy in the white here just suddenly goes backwards for no obvious reason other than just dropped his anchor and made himself a roadblock. And also you've got other guys that are really determined to move up, and any time they see a gap, any time they see a little opening, they're going to move up into it. And probably one of my big mistakes here was that I was so surprised that it was this sort of a group that I was probably quite passive and just happy to stay on a wheel, stay at a reasonable pace, and not put too much effort in, when what I should have been doing is trying to get myself into some of these gaps. Or there's a big bit of braking there. I think this is maybe just coming up to a roundabout or something like that, but someone definitely just grabbed hold of a handful of brake. So I mean, the further you can get yourself towards the front, the easier it's going to be, simply because you don't have that ripple effect every time someone hits the brakes, or every time you go through a junction, or every time you get an obstacle in the road. When the guys that were maybe 50, 100 meters behind us we're getting absolutely smashed all over the road, whereas we're reasonably comfortable here, and we're just trying to sit in the wheels, save some energy. Heart rate's actually going down, even though we're going slightly uphill. And there we go. That's a big bit of braking, big concertina. I think everybody from the left hand side is having to squeeze in when we're going just through a junction there. Bit of elbows. Always good to see someone not afraid to lean into another rider. And boom, 600 watts coming out of that corner. That was that was an interesting moment, and I can remember thinking, these accelerations are pretty tough. I hope we don't do this out of every corner. Unfortunately, we did pretty much every corner we went through, every roundabout. You were still getting those peaks, massive accelerations, and then you catch up to the bunch like this, and it would be relatively easy again. You'd be sat in the wheels and powering along at a silly speed. So I've just flicked it forward. This is about 7 or 8 minutes later, and you can see we're hurtling along at 55k an hour. Now, I know this route really, really well. And like I said, I've done it, I think it's my 12th time I've done it. And just down here, we're going to go from what's quite a wide open main road, and we're going to turn right into a narrow country lane. And you know that because the guys are well spread across the road here, it's quite comfortable. You can find space, but as soon as you go into a narrow lane, everyone's going to be strung out, and all of these guys that are currently across the road are all going to be in one line. So we've nearly come to a standstill here. I think I actually had to unclip because someone leant into me and I nearly lost it. But then as soon as you get around here, it's not even as though you're hitting high watts here, because you just can't. There's just too many riders in front of you. You can't get back on the gas. But by now, guys that were 15-20 meters in front of you are like 100 meters in front of you. The head of the race wasn't that far ahead, but all of a sudden they're out of sight. And Pete, my teammate that I was with, he's gone. He was only 10-15 in front of me going into that corner, but now I can't see him, and I can't move up either. It's it's either sit in this wheel here or try and move up on the grass. And I think I made a mistake of following this guy, and he wasn't exactly great through some of these corners. Not terrible at cornering, but he just sort of let a gap go before every corner, and then was absolutely hooning it out of the corners. And the pace is pretty tough here, and my heart rate is just steadily climbing. And you've got quite a few corners, so every time we come out of one of these corners, so you see he's just let a little gap go there, and now we've got to get on the gas again. It's big numbers to try and close the gap, and a lot of these guys have got more power than me as well, so I could just see my heart rate steadily climbing and climbing and climbing. And don't forget, this is about 15 kilometers into a what could be a 190 kilometer race. You don't want to be absolutely frying yourself 15 kilometers in, because the rest of the day is going to be really, really painful. And I don't think I didn't even have heart rate open on my Wahoo whilst I was riding, but you just, over the years you can just feel it. You can just feel that, I'm in a place where I don't think I've got much more, and 189 beats, max is about 191, 192 maybe. That's like sprinting max. So I'm starting to struggle here, just hoping that there's going to be some respite, that I can find a group of guys that are maybe just going a little bit steadier. I know there's a little bottleneck coming up here. There's a bridge that goes over the Somme canal, and it always slows down there, so you're going to get a couple of seconds respite. I think we're just about to hit it now. You can just see everyone getting hard on the brakes again as they go into this. Some of the guys that are behind us that come down here sort of 2-3 minutes later, they might have to wait there for 30 seconds just to get over. The bottleneck gets that bad, and then you can imagine what happens after that. It's full gas. Even for us, where we're near at the front, we haven't had to wait. You can still see that the guys are still on the pace here, and I think it was about this point where I'm thinking, I don't feel very good. I don't feel very well at all, and that's mainly due to the high heart rate. And I'm still doing 44k an hour. I just thought, well, just do that. There's loads and loads of guys behind me. There's going to be groups forming on the road. The problem is the racer inside you. You see these guys coming up your outside, around you on the outside, and you're thinking, I don't want to let him through. I've got to follow that wheel. But you've just got to try and think about the long game, because, as I said, you might be able to follow these guys for another couple of 100 meters, but then you're going to be absolutely out on your ass. And it is tough. It's tough to just sit there and watch them ride past you. But when you're at 187 beats per minute, there's nowhere else to go. And I can try and close gaps through corners, just by the braking distance, but they're still going to hammer it back out the other side of the corner, and you've got to try and cover that each time. And each time you do that, you're just pushing your heart rate up more and more. And again here, I just can't follow him. I'm just going to let another wheel go, and another wheel go, and another wheel go, and you're thinking, just that level of effort will do. We'll let these guys go, and eventually, at some point later, we're going to find a group that we can sit in comfortably. So one of the great things about this ride as well is this is like 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning in the middle of nowhere in France, but you still get people coming out, standing at the side of the road, clapping, and it's a really great atmosphere. And as the day goes on, that just gets better and better. So again, just spooled on a little bit further. This is just coming up to one of the first sort of uphill drags of the day. And it's not much of a drag, this, but it always just sort of thins things out and splits people up. And I think that was just one of my other teammates just coming past there. That's Alan. Did a great ride, Alan. Really good time. You got around the course in about 5 hours 20, I think, in the end. Just really, really good. And again, I can't follow him up here. It's not like I'm going slow. This is not the steepest of climbs, so it's not very long. It's about 6%, but I'm still doing 350 plus watts, just trying to stay with some of the riders, just seeing if I can get over here in a group so that I can get to the next hill in a group and then see where I am there. But some of these guys are absolutely smashing it down here, and I think I saw from another video that I was about 30 seconds behind Pete by this point, who I'd started with, and this is only 15 kilometers in, if that. So it was taking its toll at this point. You can see I've reached max heart rate again, and that's the first climb of the day. So you have to stop, reassess, well, not stop, but you have to stop and think and reassess where you're going to be come the end of the day, because as I said, if you keep going, you're not going to last very long. And so this is about another 5 kilometers later, and as I said, a few guys have come past that maybe aren't going quite as fast. So I've managed to jump on to the back of them, and we just reached the second climb of the day, which is probably the steepest. It's not that long. You've got this little drag that we've just gone over before it as well. And, we're still flying around here, 42, 43, 44k an hour. I'm still struggling to hold wheels, but then I know what's coming up as well. So I'm thinking all the time, just think about your cornering, just try and hold wheels where you can. But if guys are going to come flying past you, there's no point trying to hold them. This guy here with the yellow water bottle, I think I spent most of the day with him, just kept appearing in different groups. But here we go, this is the bottom of the climb. It's a climb that ramps up to about 16% in places. So yeah, it gets pretty steep, and you can see guys that have just got themselves in the wrong gear, or maybe weren't aware that it was coming. And again, I'm just trying to think, limit your losses, try and hold onto wheels where you can, but don't go too deep. Just trying to ride about just over my 3-minute power, which is about 310. So I'm probably exceeding that a little bit at times, but just trying to stick around about that sort of number, trying to focus, just trying to shut out the pain, which is pretty bad by now. Back up to max heart rate, trying not to think about the fact that we've probably done no more than 20 kilometers of a 190 kilometer route, trying to just focus on the next sort of target, top of this hill, then finding a group, then worry about the next hill. And you just try and focus on that, and then one of your teammates just breezes past you and completely messes with your head. So that's never great. That's young James there, who is a really, really strong rider. Could probably on his day beat most of the guys in our club. It's just whether he can be bothered or not. He's got that sort of problem. Yeah, so we're just coming up to the top of that climb now. Watts are still pretty high, and one of the things with this climb is to try and make sure that you keep the power on over the top, because you kind of ride up in a group and you think, oh, I've done it. I've managed to stay in that group up that climb, and then you get to the top and everyone starts getting the power, and you're at max, so 191 beats per minute. That's max. That is max. Doesn't get much higher than that for me. And so at this point I'm thinking, I'm pushing and nothing's coming out the legs. You're looking, Watts have gone down, not up. So you just try and breathe, try and get that heart rate down, try and hang with some of these guys, but and try not to get distracted by the view, because it really was a beautiful morning. You can just see a lovely September morning. The sun is just sort of starting to get above the horizon. So you know me, I love the flatlands. This is great, open countryside, big skies, and it's a lovely place to ride your bike. But as I said, don't get distracted by that. Try and focus on just following some of these wheels, because again, look, these guys are just flying past me. They're flying past me, and I'm not reeling the guys in that group in front in. So double down, focus, try and get the watts up a bit, try and reel them in. Plus it's flattening out now, it's nearly completely flat, and there's not too much wind, I don't think, at this point. It was pretty still. And also I can just see James there in front of me. And when you're suffering and you're catching a teammate, what do? Do you sit in the wheel and take a tow, or do you smash past and try and pretend that you're way stronger than him? Yeah, you always go for the latter. So at this point, I've got James tucked in my wheel. I'm trying to find a group somewhere that I can latch onto. All these guys are still coming flying past me. You can just see how strung out he is there as they go in the corner. And what actually happened here was I didn't find any wheels. These guys all kind of formed a group and smashed off up the road. There's our friend with the yellow bottle again. What happened was it was actually guys coming up, sort of falling back towards us from front groups. So you catch them and they kind of slow you down, and then faster guys would catch you from behind. Then they'd push through the front, but by then the group was really big, so you got this swollen group with a few stronger riders appearing, and then they start pushing on. So this is again a little bit further on, about 10-15 kilometers further on, just coming off a descent, and we've been in a good little group here for a little while, reasonably comfortable, and it was that sort of effect that you've got guys up at the front that are really strong, and people that have been caught who aren't going as well, but can sit quite comfortably in a big group like this. And we're just riding into this other climb at a place called Wasmore. You can just see there's like a telephone mast at the top of the hill, which shows you how far away it is. Not as steep, this one. It's more of a drag, and again, you're just trying to think, who are the guys that are going to go backwards and block me? Who are the wheels I need to follow? Who can I follow? And just trying to stay in contact so that you don't get blown out the back of this group completely. And it's quite nice riding over here, because what happens is a lot of the guys don't tend to absolutely hammer it on the hills. They'll ride pretty hard when it's flat, but when it starts to go up, they will ride at a sensible pace. I mean, it's hard, but it's a sensible pace. It's not like they're trying to kill everybody in the group. And again, I'm trying to just hold it around that 300 watts. There's our matey with the yellow bottle. So just hold it around the 300 watts sort of point and see if I can get to the top. I think around about this point someone gives me a massive shove in the back, which, thanks for that. It probably actually helped me stay in this group, to be honest with you. So I got a big push, and we just sort of try and focus and get ourselves up this hill. Pretty unpleasant at this point, actually. I seem to remember thinking I'd quite like to go home. But then that's just the whole sort of mental toughness side of it, isn't it? There's so many times you want to just get off the bike and never look at a bike again, and sell your bikes. But you just have to focus, because when you get to the end, it feels great. And you're always proud of what you've done. But yeah, it's at this point, again, heart rate is way up. Lots of guys coming past me. You can see how far away that radio mast is at the top of the hill. It's still quite a way to go, and I'm constantly thinking, you're going to get to the top, you're going to stay in this group, you're going to be fine. There's loads and loads of riders behind you. You're going to be just fine. The problem is, at the back of your mind, you're also thinking, I'm getting dropped. I've got no power. But that's just cycling, I suppose, isn't it? Anyway, it's there's a guy up here just riding up, pushing someone else. That's so annoying. It's so annoying when you see someone doing that when you're absolutely hanging out your arse. But there's all sorts of different abilities in this race. Some of the guys at the front are super strong. Like I said earlier, there's a couple of ex-pros in here who you wouldn't even think they were trying. They're just plodding along, laughing at us basically. And there, Didi, the son of Didi, to cheer us along down the road. So again, fast forwarded. So yeah, I think I stayed in that group, and now I've fast forwarded again. Just skipped down the road. Another one of my teammates, that's Richard. First time he's done the event, seemed to enjoy it, and just got himself tucked nicely in this group. Quite a long way down this group. If I remember right, this is a really, really big group. And you can see again, we're flying along. Yeah, it's slightly downhill, but we're flying along here, and I'm just trying to move up because I can see how big this group is. And again, there's going to be a climb somewhere further down the road, so you just want to try and move up. Hey, it's our friend with the yellow bottle. I literally did ride with him all day. I think he was stalking me or something, or he'd probably say vice versa, wouldn't he? Yeah, so I was trying to move up here, but at 50k an hour, it's pretty difficult. It's not least because to do so, you got to go on the wrong side of the road, and we've got some protection. We've got a couple of motorbikes that are riding with us, but it's not fully closed roads. Cars can use the roads. It is a quiet part of France, and you can just see from the video, you're not seeing that many cars, and that guy there is perfectly happy to take the risks. I didn't want to take the risk. I'm already doing 57k an hour, so you got to go pretty hard to try and move up any further. But it is important, when you're in a group like this, that you do keep moving up, because you'll come to another climb, and it just gives you so many wheels to slip back down if you are towards the front of the group when you get to a hill. This is a great bit of road. This is it's just like a slightly downhill plateau, and it's just so fast. And again, big open skies, great big wind turbines there. It's a great view. It's perfect, lovely morning. And I do remember thinking at this point that I felt pretty good and I was pretty happy with things. And that all kind of went wrong shortly afterwards. So I've actually cut out quite a bit of the ride there. Not because just what happened was the I got dropped in a couple of climbs. I fell back from one group to another, and then fell back to another group, and then fell back to another group, and then another climb, dropped my chain, and I was pretty fed up with life. And then I realised I'd turned the camera off, so lost a bit of footage. But by now we've at about 70 kilometres in, the route hits the coast, the coast of the Somme department, which I guess people don't necessarily go to the Somme for the holidays, but it's a perfectly pretty part of France. I mean, I don't think you can go too wrong with France. And as the route goes down the coast, it turns onto this little path that heads through the dunes. So we've got the sea on our left hand side with the beach, and then dunes, and it's really a tight little road, and we're absolutely gunning it down here again. You can just see we're doing 43 kilometers an hour. It's a rough old surface, and this group is really pushing on. And also you get lots of dog walkers and people that have gone to enjoy the beach, and maybe sat in the dunes, and all of a sudden there's 1,000 cyclists herring down this normally quiet abandoned path. So it can be a little bit hairy at times. Also, it wasn't so bad this year, but last year the sand all blew onto the path as well, so that was pretty dicey. The biggest problem on this particular edition was we're just about to reach one of the sort of the feed stations that they have on the route. Now, obviously the feed station's there to provide you with water to top you up, and drinks and food and stuff. Personally, I don't want to stop, because this is 100k into the race. I'll only stop if I absolutely have to, but unfortunately there's quite a few guys who maybe take a slightly different approach to the event, and they want to stop, they want to fill up their bidons, they're gonna maybe they've raced hard to here and want to take the rest easy, and what they do, they get here and it's like, oh, I finished, thank you very much. And there was a few expletives being issued, as Colin Kirby might say. I wasn't very happy with them, but there we go. So flicking forward again, after that first feed I was in a pretty rough place, to be honest. I didn't feel great, and I took the coward's way out. So where the two routes split, which is about 110k, something like that, I decided to turn off and do the shorter of the two routes, for which I will be which I will hang my head in shame. But that's what happened. I think sometimes you just need to enjoy the ride rather than punishing yourself and trying to prove that you can do the distance. Because I've done the longer routes before. I've done the longer routes in a decent time. I wasn't in great shape this year, and it was more about the whole weekend experience, making sure I was having a good time with the lads and doing. So I did the shorter route, and the guys doing the shorter route, they're no slower. They smash it as well. Because we're not at the front of the race for the short route here. We're probably 50, 60, 70 riders back, maybe something like that. So these aren't the fastest guys doing the short route, but still we're hammering it. And we've turned into sort of the lanes that go back over the Somme Canal. So we're heading towards the finish now. Still producing a reasonable amount of watts as we go up that little bridge, and then we got a final little ramp. I can't really call it a climb, it's just a little ramp as one road leads up back onto the main road, but you could just tell these guys were getting feisty. They were starting to wind up for the finish, which basically, once you've turned back onto the main road, is the same as the start that we ran through earlier. So up this last little ramp here, trying to give it every watt I got left. Felt absolutely terrible at this point, but hey ho. Just trying to stay in with this group so that I can maybe just contest some sort of sprint from this group at the end. I'd love to be able to show you the finish, but despite having tried to manage the camera all the way around, it runs out in about 5 seconds, which was 3 kilometers short of the finish. And I'd love to tell you that what I actually did was, raced smart, hung in the wheels, pushed it hard through the last corner and won the sprint finish for my bunch, but I didn't. I sat in the back chatting to a Belgian guy and just rolled over the line because I was absolutely shot to bits. It's a great place to ride your bike, and we make a really good weekend of it, have a really good time with we have a good barbecue, we have some beers, there's always banter afterwards, everyone's got a story about heroics and disasters and all the rest of it. So just a top weekend. If you get the chance, it's La Ronde Picarde, and I'll link below as to how you can enter, and maybe see you there next September.